All right, all right, all right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm James Oliver Jr., managing partner of Kabila Ventures, a new VC firm coming soon. CEO of Kabila, which connects overlooked founders to capital, customers, and co-founders. Husband to an amazing wife and co-founder of the world's cutest twins. So look, before we get going here, tell us where you're coming in from in the comments. We want to celebrate where you are. And please share this on your social media channels, platforms that you're watching on, to invite your friends to join this really important conversation. Also, as we get into this, please drop your questions in the comments and we will do our best to get to all of them. Quick update. So I just launched the Kabila Founder Mental Health Fund with a $25,000 grant from Techstars co-founder Brad Feld. And starting on Monday, we're going to pay for therapy for founders in our Kabila ecosystem, plus our port co-founders once we launch the fund. Super, super, super excited about this. One of the most important things, as we know, that early stage founders need is capital. Knowing how to connect with investors can be the difference between a yes and a no from an investment standpoint. So my question to you is, what do you say when an investor says, so tell me about yourself? If you're like me, I hate talking about myself. You're like, I don't know. So we have a treat for you today to help you with this. So we have the homie Anastasia Simon, managing director of the Techstars WaterTech and Sustainability Accelerator, who will show us how to answer that question. And we have one brave soul who will workshop this in real time with Anastasia, Mina, and well, two if you count me. So let me bring Anastasia up here. Welcome, Anastasia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am amazing. You said you weren't feeling well. You look good.
I mean, I always look good. That doesn't mean that I feel well. Right? Right?
Let me rephrase that. You look well.
Yes, I look like I am not
You
sick.
you know what I meant. I don't know why you start
Yes.
with me today. You
Yes.
love
Well,
to
you
start
the
with
one
me.
started. You started,
You
not
you
me.
love
You
to start with me. You started with me, Anastasia.
started.
It's good to see you.
Good to see you as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So what are your thoughts about why this topic is important? Because when I brought it up to you, we're like, oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So I think, the big thing is that what I find as an investor, so you go to a conference, you have that big badge on that says investor at the top of the badge, and you get founders that kind of look at you, they lean in, squint, see that it says investor, walk up to you and don't talk to you like a person. They pitch you immediately right off bat. It's like, hey, I'm James. I have this business. Let me tell you about it. And it's like, I'm a person, and that feels very aggressive. That does not feel good. It doesn't feel good if I walk up to you and just start spewing at you. I also think it shows that you are viewing it as a transaction and not as a relationship. And we say that all the time, that this business is about relationships. Like, yes, it's relationships that lead to transactions, but it truly is a relationship business. And people invest, particularly at the earliest stages, in founders. I don't get to know you if you just spit your business at me.
Yeah, man, that's real talk. And I do these things all the time. And I, like a broken record, I tell founders, investors, invest in lines, not dots. So perfect example. If you're building in the clean tech space, well, Anastasia runs the
Mhm.
Techstars WaterTech, and clean tech is could you
Sustainability. So we say
sustainability.
sustainability.
Yeah,
Yes, yes,
sorry,
yes, yes.
accelerator. And this is a perfect opportunity. Like, if you're doing that and if you saw this pop up, why didn't you sign up to workshop this in real time, Anastasia? Because guess what? Now she's getting to know you as a human, like she's talking about, and you just like these dots, right? And eventually Anastasia can like connect the dots, and now she has a line. She's like, okay, now I feel a little bit more comfortable with this person. Let me see what's going on with them, for real. So I
Mhm.
appreciate that. And also, I think it was John Hill that said this: if the first time you meet an investor, you ask for money, like you failed.
Yeah. I mean, like, I want us to start thinking about, because we always use the dating analogy, right? Like, you hear it all the time. When you go out and you're meeting investors, you want to think of it like dating, because not only are you trying to get money from me, you're trying to understand, am I the best person to help you bring your business to fruition, whatever that means for you, right? So if I'm the person who's not only going to be cutting you a check, I'm going to be supporting your growth over the next however many years that you're building this business, you want to make sure that I have the skills and the expertise that you are looking for and that you and I vibe. You know, like you don't want an investor who, when you call them in the middle of the night because you are freaking out because you are running out of capital, that they hit and send you to voicemail because they're at dinner and they have better things to do and they never reach out to you. Or better yet, I know this from personal experience from a friend of mine. She shut down her business just before the holidays. One of the folks that invested in her was on the email where she said, "Hey, I'm shutting down my business." He has yet to respond to that email. And it is almost the end of Q1. And every day she and I talk and she's like, running count, he still hasn't responded to the email. So you want to have all of those data points on me as an investor, just like I want those data points on you as a founder. Are you coachable? Are you someone who likes to tussle with me about nonsense? Like, yo, and I'm laughing at it because I have some founders that love to tussle, and you're like, this isn't even a tussleable offense, you know? And so it's like, those are the things that we're trying to get to know. And we get to know each other. Imagine if you went on a first date and the first thing that person was like, yo, let's get married. You'd think they've lost their mind.
100%.
That's what you're doing when you come up to me and it's like, hey, I saw you on that panel. You were really great. Do you want to cut a check?
Like, bro, I don't even know you.
Who are you?
Who
I
are
hate
you?
it sounds like such a cool kid, mean girl kind of thing, but again,
But it's not like
I'm a person.
you are right. And so I'm transitioning from founder mode to investor mode, launching Kabila Ventures. And I think we were having a conversation about this the other day, like this exact same thing. Like I do these events and I'm like, well, like, how do I want to handle that? Because I want to go to my events and have my pizza and drink my rosé like everybody else. But I don't want people like bombarding me about this other thing. You know what I mean? So how do I manage that? But I digress. But so how do you want to do this? So I have Mina standing by here, and it is myself. Do you want us to attempt to answer the question first, and
Yeah, so
then you
let's have you guys
do the
answer.
show us the deck or
Yeah, yeah,
something, and then we come back and
yeah.
maybe fix
So
it or
yeah.
something?
Yeah, so I want to have Mina come in,
Yeah.
and love Mina
Yes.
and
Hello,
tell me,
Mina.
hey, it's been a long time. So tell me, tell me about yourself. And remember, we're at a cocktail party. It is loud. We are
Yeah.
networking, and you need me to understand who you are, what you do, and be memorable because I probably get hit up 20 times in the next 10 minutes.
So let me introduce Mina first before we have her just jump right into the deep
I was
end.
like, she's going to introduce herself. So she's going to introduce herself, right?
Well, okay. Well, she may. Go ahead, Mina. Go for it.
I want Mina to introduce herself.
All right.
Oh,
okay,
got
now I'm
you.
nervous apparently. My throat is like I got a frog in my throat. I've never been nervous about anything in my life. I'm Mina. I like brains. I know, right? I dropped out of high school to raise my brother and sisters when we lost our parents. And so I would work during the days to make money. Like this is how I learned about entrepreneurship. I'd work during the days doing odd jobs, mowing lawns with my little baby sister strapped to my back. And at night, I would stay up all night in our little 1-bedroom efficiency or our hotel room learning about brains. I've been absolutely fanatic about it since the beginning. And that drive to learn more about how brains work is how I got into college, where I studied kinesiology, neuroscience, and executive function, specifically executive dysfunction, which is something I also deal with. We can talk about anything about brains all day long.
Okay.
That's also what led me to be the founder of Better CEO. By the way, yeah, I'm a founder.
So let's give some context real quick. We are I'm at an unfair advantage because I do know Mina, and I'm very familiar with her business because I was one of the folks who led the investment with her coming into Techstars last summer.
And why I'm so
Atlanta,
spoiled
right?
on the kind of relationships that I have with investors. I'm totally spoiled.
So there's a lot in there, Mina, that I think can work. There's a lot that I want us to talk about. I think the biggest thing is I want us to get to the point more quickly. Okay. I love brains because my brain went to zombie movies and to that kind of thing. And I'm like, where is this girl taking me? So that will be memorable because for the rest of the night, I'll be like, that's the girl who likes brains. Like that is the brain girl.
That's the zombie lady.
She's leading the zombie apocalypse, But I think getting me to the point more quickly is where we're going to go to. And we're going to talk about that more when we jump into the deck, because I think that's the one thing that I see founders miss, is that they don't go into a conversation with an outcome in mind. And so if you don't have an outcome in mind, you're going to just tell me a bunch of stuff and I don't know where we're going with this. I don't know what to do with this. It's just like a word vomit kind of situation. So we'll get into that about how do you refine what your desired outcome is, and you want to tailor that to your audience. So James.
Oh man, this is so good, and it's giving me agita because I have no idea what I want to say. So what's your question to me, ma'am?
Tell me about yourself.
Hey, yeah. So I'm co-founder of the World's Cutest Twins, and I am also a champion of overlooked founders everywhere. I'm currently raising a venture fund to invest in overlooked founder teams, and when I'm successful, overlooked founders around the world will no longer be overlooked.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So you know what? When you did your intro earlier, when we first got on, I think that was the best, most concise. Tell me about you. I think you got nervous just now. I do love that you. I do love that you lead with the co-founder of the World's Cutest Twins, because I think that tells me right off bat you are a parent. You are someone who does not take yourself too seriously, because we know that is a very unserious thing to say, that you co-founded children. It's true in a sense, but it's very unserious.
Yeah. It is, but it's also memorable, I think, right? Because nobody ever says it like that.
No. And I think because when you say it like, oh, I'm a parent, it comes across very differently than when you say like, hey, one of the most amazing things I've co-founded is my twins.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I love that. I love where we're thinking about that. But again, I want us to always be thinking about what is the outcome. And so, you know, what is the message you're trying to pull across to that specific audience that you're talking to?
So Amina, feel free to jump in. If anybody's listening here, just so you know, y'all, I'm gonna pull you down for 2 seconds so I can get this thing to show so people know we're talking about Mina. Stand by, I'm gonna bring you right back. Hang on a second, Mina. But you see at the top, how to craft a compelling personal story that captivates investors. That's what we're talking about. So we're streaming on a bunch of different platforms, so I can't tell how many people are watching across all the platforms. So if you're out there listening, if you have a question, like please drop a question in the comments and we will do our best to get to it. But Anastasia, what you just said there, it's like, so we're at a cocktail party and you have an investor badge on, which I may or may not have seen when we were talking. And you go, tell me about yourself. How do I know what the end goal is if I don't even know who you are, what you invest in?
Great question. So that's why you need to know what is your end goal. Why are you talking to me? Why are you talking to me? What do you want?
Because my mom, I'm not rude and you asked me a question. That's why I'm talking to you.
I'm not going to just walk up to you and say, tell me about yourself. Most people, that's very, you know, obviously. So let's say we're at a conference, you walk up to me, or we're at a cocktail hour, you walk up to me. Hey, how are you? That kind of thing. What is your goal, first of all, for going to that event? Whether it's a networking event, a conference, you're pitching, whatever it is, what is your goal? You should never walk into a room without a goal. I go to networking events all the time, and it depends on the event, and it depends on who invited me, what my goal is, right? Because there are sometimes I go simply because one of the homies invited me and I'm coming to show support, right? In that instance, I'm probably just going to be like, hey, Mina, so tell me about yourself. You look really cool. That's a cute shirt you have on. I'm talking to you just to get to know people, just to make conversation, right? My goal is to come and be supportive of my friend who is hosting this event or who, you know, is speaking on this panel. So that's my goal, right? Sometimes my goal is to meet and connect with founders, you know? And so if that's the case, while I'm talking to folks, I'm going to talk to them and say, hey, would love to know more about what you're building. James, I see that you're a founder. Tell me a little bit more about you and what you're building, you know? Because my goal at the end of the day is to walk away with so many new founder connections or so many new investor connections. You don't walk into a room without a sense of purpose. I've been talking about this a lot. I'm an Army brat, so my dad was in the military, and I was raised that you move with a sense of purpose and intentionality. And I think a lot of us don't think about that before we go to the event.
I think that's true. It's just, yeah, it's just like, so like perfect example. I went to Venture Atlanta
Mhm.
a couple of months ago, and I didn't really have an object. Well, I went because I knew David was going to be there, David Cohn,
Mhm.
Techstars CEO, and he was in town. And um, after he had that meeting to talk about the
Yeah, yeah.
Techstars to Atlanta, whatever that was, he texted me. He's like, "Hey, I'm over outside the doors. Come say hi." So I went to say hi to him. I was like, "I want to say hi to David," and it was Techstars Atlanta demo day, so I wanted to see that. But other than that, I didn't really have a goal, and I met a lot of people.
But
So
when you're
maybe I
talking to
missed
them,
out on, huh?
but when you're so like, yeah, so think about like had you gone in with a laser focus, right? So I was also at Venture Atlanta, and
Yeah.
the reason I was there was just like you. I was there because honestly, so David, our CEO, was having a meeting. I was in that meeting to understand what's going on and the ecosystem as it is changing in Atlanta. Also was there to support our final Atlanta class because I had a hand in selecting that class, and to celebrate all the amazing work that we've done through the years with the Cox program. And then also because I'd been working out of Alabama for the previous like 2 or 3 months at that point, wanted to reconnect with some of my folks in the region, because Venture Atlanta is a great opportunity. You have folks from LA, you have folks from New York, all over coming to the Southeast. And there were a lot of folks who I hadn't seen in person in a while and was like, this is more a family reunion kind of vibe than anything. So when I went in, for example, to Five Church, there was an event hosted by Slauson and Co. I knew I had 2 things that I wanted to do. One was talk to Austin, who is the GP over there, because Austin and I had only met online. We've talked on Zoom. We've never talked in person. And the other thing was catch up with all of the investors who I knew that would be there and some of the founders I knew. And so I went there very laser focused on, I'm going to talk to my people and then I'm out. Okay. But if I went in with a situation of, I don't know anybody, I'm going to go in and say, hey, I'm trying to get to know people. That's very different than like if I see you at an event, like, yo, what's happening? Let's chop it up,
Yeah.
And so that's what I'm saying. I think the 2 things that founders need to focus on when we're talking about, and I love how this has turned into a fireside chat because that was not the vibe we were going with this, but it works.
But I think it's good because you have a deck, right? We're gonna get to that.
Yeah, I have a deck, and we don't. And let me say this, like I'm more of a yapper. We're gonna talk about it. We're gonna get the high points. We don't. I think decks are helpful because they keep you on track. That's it.
But so, if I may, apologize for cutting you off there, because the point I was trying to make was, I wonder if. So first of all, I knew a lot of people at Venture Atlanta too, right? A lot of founders and stuff. But I wonder if I had a different intention. I had at least some intention in mind because other than those 2 things, which are very kind of generic, if I had something, if I'd have been like, hey, as I'm raising for my fund, right? If I'd have been like, hey, like, who are the people in this room that might invest in my fund?
Yes. You might have walked out with some GPs.
I mean, I did talk to 2 people who said that they might. That was surprising. I was surprised by that because I wasn't even thinking about that, even though that's like top of mind for me every other day of the week. I should have been more intentional about that when I went down there. Like, what the heck? Like, so anyway, please continue.
No.
Well,
So
I want to say though, there's like a balance because when I walk into these places, I'm such a dork. It's either you're instantly interesting and I want to learn about you, or not. And so going in with a perfect purpose feels kind of inauthentic. And I'm not from Atlanta, so I was at Venture Atlanta because they made me. So when I was walking around talking to people,
I love the authenticity of that.
Yeah.
Right. But that doesn't lead anywhere. Like I've got a lot of people on my LinkedIn now. I've got a lot of people that I mess around with, like even like investors and stuff, texting back and forth going, oh shit, my kid just found out that they have ADHD. Should I go get tested? I get a lot of those, but no, hey, are you raising yet? So how do you make that transition? Because I think I'm good at the relationship building because I just hard on my sleeves. But how do we graduate this relationship to, hey, I really want to see you every month for the next 7 years and you have to write me a check to be that part of my life?
So some of it is, and I hear you on going in and saying, these are the things I want to get, because it makes it feel super transactional. So I'm not saying like go in and say, when I go in, I need to get 5 potential LPs. No, it's just, hey, I know why I signed up to go to this. It's like when you go into the kitchen, you know why you went into the kitchen. That's literally what it is. That's what I'm saying.
Well, yeah,
know?
I think, but I think that matters though, because when it's like what you appreciate appreciates, right? When we focus our attention on, it expands, and if that's our attention is focused on that in some capacity, like we might happen to notice something
Mm-hmm.
that we would not have otherwise noticed. That's in
Mm-hmm.
alignment with that attention, and
Mm-hmm.
that's. I think there's value there.
Yeah. But I also think so, like for Mina's example, you have to work with how your brain works, how you are as a person, right? Like I get very overstimulated easy in large crowds. So Venture Atlanta is hell for me, low key. Like I go through and it's so many people and it's massive. And so I know that I need to cut through the crowd, find maybe one or two people that are my people, talk to them for a minute, get my nervous system calmed down, and then move into something else, right? So I know how I function and I know what is optimal for me. You have to figure out what's optimal for you, but you always should have some kind of goal in mind as you go to these events, because if not, you end up meeting a bunch of people and you're like, I don't know like maybe I met some cool people to hang out with, but like,
Yeah.
how did this build my business and move my business forward?
Yeah.
You have a finite amount of time as a founder, as a fundraiser. You have finite time. And how are these things that I'm signing up for moving my business, moving the needle? Both of y'all are also parents,
Yeah.
you have kids, you have a life, you have a business that is also a child, and so you have to think about how these hours in the day. But I want to get back to something Mina was saying about how do I flip the switch, right, with this relationship. So the first thing is that you can't be afraid to ask. I find, go ahead, because James, you're like, what you mean? Go ahead.
Ask for
what you need. What do you need? Because in the course of a relationship, if you and I are homies, you and I start building a relationship, I'm an investor. I know that you are a founder. I know that at some point you're going to need money. At some point you need to say to me, hey, Anastasia, I'm kicking off a round and would love to chat with you about this.
But is that different from what we're talking about? Listen, I 1,000% agree with you. You got to ask for what you want, like 100%.
No, that's very different. But I wanted to, because Mina did have a question specifically about like how to nurture that relationship. You have to eventually say like, yes, we're cool, but like, what is it that I want? Like, you have to go through that kind of conversation. James, there are times you text me and you're texting me and it's like, hey, anybody in this space? Hey, this is a problem that I'm coming through and I have a challenge with, how can you support me? Things like that.
Yeah.
That in the course of the relationship, there are things you're going to ask for.
Of course.
Not because it's transactional, but because that's how relationships work.
100%.
Right.
100%. And, and side note, I know you were not going there, but I think like, it's like, if we're going to spend our time, this is maybe a bit of a digression. I have bad ADHD, Mina, so I apologize. But
I don't know if you know what I do.
it's sort of relevant, but I think it's important if you think it's not relevant. It's like the things that we're doing, all of it's hard. Yes. Right? So you might as well, a perfect example. So yes, I'm raising money. So I sent Mark Cuban an email and Reid Hoffman an email, just because, I've been in touch with Mark in the past. Like I interviewed him before. He responds to my email sometimes. And Reid was involved with this, VCs for Kamala thing. And so I made an ask, right? Because people are like, oh, that's crazy. But is it though? Because I know Mark invested in some similar funds. I think Reid has some interest in it. So it's going to be hard to raise the money either way. But I might as well spend my time asking people who actually have the capacity when I get to a yes, because it's going to take the same amount of energy to get to a yes from those guys as it is from dude down the block. To spend my time, so when I get it, it actually is impactful for what I'm trying to accomplish. Does that make sense to you or not? Is that crazy?
I mean, closed mouths don't get fed. That's it.
Closed mouths don't get fed. Okay, I got one more question for along the lines of, okay, so this is becoming like the neurodivergent fundraising party. But I know that I've had this conversation with other founders too. You've got your sharks that like have no problem asking for what they want. They walk into the room, they're like, commanding the whole thing. And it's like, I'm going to stay over here. But then you have the people that are like, hey, I've built a relationship with this person, but I haven't gotten as far along with my product or with my business as I wanted to. And I don't feel like I have anything to offer them in exchange for moving our relationship forward. into an investment partnership. I know, right? So it's like, how do we start thinking about when to ask, what to ask, and how? I guess, how do we get out of our own heads when it comes to, like, I want it to be further along right now. I just pushed back another pushed a pitch to local angels back another month because I thought I'd be monetized by now and I'm not, and I didn't want to take it in front of them.
So it is International Women's Month, or Women's History Month, girl, whatever is a month for the girls. This is an issue I find that's unique to female founders, and to founders who are underestimated or overlooked. This is something very unique to them, where it's like, I feel like I have to add value. And it's almost like you feel like you're asking to borrow money, right? Like you're calling up your homie and you're saying, hey, I need money,
But we're
but I don't
not.
think I can pay you back. But you're not.
I don't think I can pay you back. Like, that's the thing. I don't
But
know.
it's not alone.
I'm willing to take the risk.
It's not alone. It's
Do I
not
wanna put
alone.
risk on my
It is.
friends.
It's not alone. It's not alone. As an investor, as an early stage investor, you have the expectation that a portion of your portfolio will go to zero. It is an inherently high risk asset class. That is why you have to be an accredited investor. The accredited investor rules exist not because rich people are more intelligent, but because a rich person can afford to lose $50,000 when somebody who only makes $100 a year cannot afford that, right? So it really is that the expectation is, I'm going to make a certain number of bets, a certain percentage of those bets will go to zero. So I don't feel bad if I really believe in you, that I'm giving you the money because I believe that you say you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And I know that despite your best efforts, things could still go to hell. Okay. So that also is sometimes you need to get out of your head and go to therapy. James got some therapy for founders. I do not get into, I do not get into that, but because that's not my ministry, but I always encourage founders to go and talk to folks, because a lot of that is mindset shift that you need to work through. I want us to get back though, because we're supposed to be talking about stories. This is turning into a podcast.
Yeah. So let me drop this comment here, and
Okay.
then I want to focus on some frameworks. Frameworks. Okay. So Mikhail says, I think as a founder, before going to the event, it will be good to take a look at the list of investors or funds attending the event. Do some research on their fund thesis to know if they are a fit for you. This potentially gives you a targeted number of investors to prepare and talk to. Of course, you should be ready for other investors not on your list. Your thoughts, Anastasia?
100%. So you got to treat it like sales. That is having a background in sales and marketing. When I would go to conferences and trade shows, I knew exactly who I needed to talk to. I knew who were the top 5 people that I wanted to get in front of. And then I also said, okay, let me keep some time and options open for people who maybe aren't on my list, but are the types of folks that I need to be engaging with. But again, I don't want you to go in and make a beeline exactly to that person. You know, if possible, reach out to them in advance if you can and say, hey, like, I'm going to be in Miami in a few weeks for Miami Climate Week. Hey, Anastasia, I know you're going to be in Miami. If you have time, would love to grab coffee, you know, that kind of thing. So you want to do that. LinkedIn works. Most people don't see their LinkedIn in mail, so always be mindful of that. But that's a great kind of strategy. But always be open that the person sitting next to you at the cocktail hour could be the right, or the person in the lounge at the airport, you know, like the person sitting next to you while you're on a flight. Like I remember I was on a flight to Germany for a trade show, and the CEO of a company that our company had partnered with, not CEO, he was the CMO or something like that, sat down next to me on the flight. And it was the flight from Atlanta to Frankfurt. And so we were, obviously it's a 10-hour flight, you know? And so he and I started talking and all this other stuff. And it gave me visibility into like executive leadership at a partner that I never would have met had I not started talking to the dude next to me. We didn't talk about anything other than my flight anxiety, but it was a great, I led with, I have flight anxiety. Like
hilarious.
You know?
So let's talk about, I'm sorry. Did you have a question?
No. I was like, let's talk about frameworks. I think Mina was going with the like, girl, that's wild. Like you're telling people. I start off with, I got anxiety, y'all.
No, I'm like, that's a 10-hour conversation. All right.
No, I fell asleep. I mean, it was an overnight flight. So like we talked, we had dinner, we both put on movies, fell asleep.
Right.
That was how that was like. I think we left at like 7 o'clock. And when I woke up, we were like about to land. But it was
So
a
you're
good like getting to meet someone, you know?
so you're also an introvert, I'm gathering.
No, 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 no. I'm an extrovert. Um,
Oh, you got me all
so
confused now. How you started at the top with okay, go ahead.
so I don't think people I think a lot of times people confuse what introvert and extrovert means. It just has to do with how you get energy.
Hmm.
Okay. If you're an introvert, you tend to get energy being by yourself,
Hmm.
being in quiet spaces, things like that. If you're an extrovert, you tend to get energy from other people.
Hmm.
That does not prevent you from being in situations where there are so many people that you get overstimulated. That's like, it does not prevent an introvert from feeling lonely because introverts still will deal with loneliness. I think what we think those two things are and what they actually are very different.
Yeah, that's fair. I inferred based on your comments about when you first get to the event, you got to find your people, too many
Yeah.
people. I just inferred that, it was like, oh my God, it was overwhelming, it's sucking your energy kind of thing, but you're not
No,
saying
no,
that that's
no.
the case.
No,
Okay.
I'm saying that it's a lot of stimulation in most events, not just because it's not just the people, right? If you're at a conference, there's loud music playing, there's a lot of
Hmm.
smells going on, it's a lot of buzzy energy, it's a lot of ripping and running and all those things. And I can do that for a while because again, extroverts still need to come home and decompress, just like everybody else. Your cup gets full and your cup starts overflowing, and that's what happens. That's
Okay.
all it is. Our
All
cups
right.
are just different sizes and get full in different ways.
Interesting. Okay.
So let's talk about a couple things that I want to touch on. So the first thing is that, I hear a lot of folks say that they are not a storyteller. Everyone is a storyteller. You are a storyteller from birth. That is natural to humans. We naturally tell stories, right? And we naturally tell stories about ourselves and the people around us because that's all we know, you know? So when we talk about how do you craft a compelling story, I want everyone to realize you don't have to be a writer to craft a compelling narrative. You just have to understand like what direction we're going and put a few key components together. So
Okay.
from a founder perspective, I always tell people your personal journey is powerful. Mina can attest to this as we were going through the process of me getting to know her for Techstars. The more she shared her personal story, the more excited I was about what she was building, you know?
Why was that?
Because it showed resilience. It helped me relate to her. Because I think the thing when we talk about relationships, it's about being relatable, right? It's about connecting with the person. It's about, you also hear people like building affinity. For example, I work with the University of Alabama. I am not an Alabama fan. I went to LSU. And so I
Oh, that's a big
always
rival, right?
yeah, right. It'd only be worse if I went to UGA. But so but so I lean into the fact that we can be rivals on Saturday, but the SEC is a big family that stretches across the South where our experiences are very similar. And that's helping you build affinity. And so one of the things with Mina that I really loved was that she did share her vulnerability, right? Part of you sharing your story is not just telling me I am amazing. It's like, okay,
I
it's
just
telling me sometimes shit sucks, but I'm still amazing,
2 months after our first meeting, I'd lost my technical co-founder, so I had to learn how to code and build the damn thing myself. I almost didn't take that meeting because I didn't want to waste your time. But I built it in 2 months, launched it on the App Store, and had like 400 users 2 weeks after
Amazing.
that because
Amazing.
the problem is that important. But I felt dumb taking that meeting talking about lost my co-founder. I have to figure out how to do this. I'm 2 weeks behind on absolutely everything. These aren't as good as I promised they would be last time.
Well, that sounds similar to what you were saying about not wanting to talk to investors because you didn't have enough traction. That sounds a little similar. You agree with that, Anastasia, or no?
It's the same thing. And I would say that's why I said, girl, you got to talk to your therapist about that. No shade, obviously.
For
But
real,
so
Yeah,
I
no
no.
think
shade.
what Mina just illustrated, though, is problem, solution, outcome, right? And that is a great way as you are talking to investors to frame your business, right? The problem Mina had was, girl, my technical talent dropped the ball. He was gone. We had a breakup. The solution is I taught myself how to code. And the outcome was we were able to build this amazing wait list, right? And get people on the platform. That framework, you can apply that to so many different ways in which you are telling your story. There was a problem. This is the solution. This is the outcome. And that resonates because we all love a good conflict and resolution.
That reminds me of the old interview framework, situation, action, results, right?
Yes.
Similar.
It's the same framework. You know, I think the other one that you hear a lot is the hero's journey. If you have not heard the hero's journey, it is pretty much every movie that you've watched. It's Harry Potter, it is Star Wars, it is The Lord of the Rings. It is pretty much every movie. There is a hero. He's an unlikely hero. It's usually a he, but it should be a she as well. There's an unlikely hero who's a little bit reluctant, who then steps in, and they have these challenges. There are conflicts. There's minor pieces of resolution where you see the light coming in. There's always like some big like conflict just before the end of the story. And then the hero has come into fruition of who they are, their own as a hero, right? There's a way that you can adapt that framework as well into giving me a 60-second of this is who I am, this is what I do, right?
How's that?
Great question. So
Thank you.
Sarah Blakely is problem solution, but I also think it's a very like hero's journey kind of story that she tells, right? It's like, look, I was a woman working in corporate America. I was doing sales, and you know, there are all these different issues you have when you're trying to get dressed, right? You got lumps, you got bumps, and you want to look your best. And I had nothing, you know, and I'm giving you the Mr. Movie Phone voice so you hear how like she felt like she was in a dire situation, you know? And so the solution she came up with was she cut the feet off her pantyhose, and now she is a multi-billion-dollar business, you know? That's how Spanx came about, her origin. She starts from the beginning, not the beginning of her life, but the beginning of that story, right? And takes you through the big problem she had, takes you through how because when you hear her tell her story, if you've ever seen the Oprah episode where she tells her story, it's very much like, I was working out of my garage and, you know, she was an underdog, even though she was like a very successful salesperson. You know, it's like she was this underdog doing something amazing for women, and then it just blew up. You know, so you have to think about how you hear the stories of successful people around you. But again, if you only got 60 seconds, we got to get to the point very quickly. You need to be as authentic as possible.
Yeah.
You need to not be boring. Hit me with the razzle. There's so many things you're trying to do in a quick tell me about yourself.
Yeah. Can I flip this for a second?
Let's do it.
So Anastasia, tell me about yourself.
Oh, so thank you, James. That is a great question. So I am originally from New Orleans, moved to Atlanta several decades ago, probably about 20 years ago or so. Started my career in the fashion industry, which loved, still near and dear to my heart. Transitioned from that into tech. And now I'm working in venture. Like I tell people, the thing that has been consistent throughout my career is that whether it's fashion, tech, VC, whatever it is, I'm a connector, I'm a yapper, I'm a professional yapper. So I will always be the plug.
Okay, so you're the plug. Okay.
I'm the plug. I think so. And the thing I start with a couple things. It depends on like, obviously, because I know you, so we can go quickly. So It depends on your audience. You need to know your audience. Investors want to know one thing, customers want to know one thing, partners want to know another
Let's
thing.
assume I'm an investor, we're standing in line,
Folks
you
on the
just met
street.
me, right? That's what we're talking about. Is that
All
the
right,
story
so-
you would tell to a potential investor?
So I probably would tell to an investor, hey, because let's say, okay, so James, you're like, you and I are talking, we bump into line at Starbucks. The first thing I'm going to ask you is like, so what are you ordering? You're going to tell me your order. We're going to talk, we're going to yap a little bit about that. And you're going to say, so tell me about you, you know, tell me, what do you do? Tell me the things about you. And so I'm going to go into telling you about, where I work right now. And hey, I'm at Techstars. I am the managing director of our sustainability, our WaterTech and sustainability program. Big vision for me down the line is to become a fund manager. Right now, I still got a lot to learn, but My goal always at the end of the day is to figure out how I can be additive to the founders around me, particularly those who are trying to make the world a little bit more equitable and a lot more sustainable.
Mm.
But
That's
I'm going to
good.
start with talking to you, I'm going to ask you about your coffee.
No, I love that because that's the human side of it. And so you haven't said this explicitly, but I think the point of all this, just like the point of, the first meeting with an investor, is to get the follow-up question or get the next meeting, right? Just to pique somebody's interest so you can keep the conversation going to deeper and deeper levels. Is that yes or no?
Yeah, that's yes. So I think, again, it goes back to our dating analogy. The point of the first date is not to get married. It's to feel you out and see if we want a second date.
Okay, so frameworks, and feel free to jump here anytime. I mean, I don't mean to hog the conversation here because I think you're incredibly interesting. So hero's journey is one framework, and I think people can Google that to try to figure out how to apply that to themselves. Were there other frameworks that you tossed out so far, Anastasia?
So we talked about problem, solution, outcome is one of the ones that we talked about.
Okay.
There are a couple different ways that you can honestly build a narrative. It really is a plot. Give me a plot. Again, what are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to learn? Who my audience is depends on what I lean into, right? So for example, for this call, I would lean into the fact that I have a background in marketing. So prior to going onto the investing side of the house, I was an early stage operator who was doing sales, business development, marketing. That was my home. I also, fun fact, was a writer. So I was a freelance writer. I had my own blog, but I also wrote for a bunch of outlets. Let's see, Jezebel magazine here in Atlanta, Hope Living, a ton. I can go down the list. And because I was a style writer, I might lean into that because we're talking about writing and storytelling, right? And that lends credibility. It establishes me as someone that you should listen to. And it's bringing in a fun fact because nobody expects a VC to say, hey, I started my career as a style writer on Tyra Banks's website.
Mm-hmm. So Mikhail has a question for you.
I love it.
Anastasia. He said, you're right. Closed mouths don't get fed. As an investor, do you want founders pitching you for funds on your first meeting at an event, or you prefer to first contact at events, just be finding ways to get the investor's opinion on your startup, then build that relationship over time, i.e. days or months before asking for funds? I feel like you touched on that, but I'll let you answer that again.
Yeah, and I'll give you kind of a little bit more of an explicit answer on that. So the first thing is, in your first meeting with an investor, the ask should be there. Like you should say like, hey, saying, hey, we're raising 1.5 million is not saying, hey, Anastasia, will you cut me a check for 1.5 million? Those things are too different, right? So I want you to say like, hey, this is how much we're raising, right? And I also see some folks popping up about like, how do you go from that to let's have another chat? So I think in that instance, when we're at the end of a call, you ask people things like, so tell me, what's the next steps in the process, right? That's very like straightforward without being aggressive. Okay. The other part of like, would you prefer first contacts at events, finding ways to get the investor's opinion on your startup? I think it depends on where you are in the process, right? So if you are someone you're saying, hey, we're not raising right now, but we may raise later this year. Yeah, definitely reach out to me and say, hey, I have this challenge, I have this problem, and start building the relationship, right? You want to do that. So you start to build those dots. So that way, when you do need the money, you can ask. I'm not telling you though, I want to be very clear because a lot of founders take that to mean like, oh, I need to build a relationship. And then it's like, no, if you are fundraising and you have like 6 months, whatever, before you run out of money, you need to be very clear and upfront with me that, hey, Anastasia, we are actively raising, would love to talk to you about whatever, give me some bullet points so that I can make the decision if it even makes sense for me to talk to you, right? So I think those are different situations require a different type of finesse on that. I would say it's always preferable for you to go out and interact with an investor before you need to raise capital.
Well, that's the old build your relationships, your network before you need it.
Right.
Did you answer Jesse's question here about how do we close getting the next meeting?
Okay, so there are a couple different ways. So I have met folks out in public and we're chatting and we kind of are vibing. And again, just like in dating or making friends, you say, "Hey, would love to go grab coffee with you." Okay. I also get a lot of, "Hey, would love to connect and have a conversation." And we're like, "Yo, like, let's connect on LinkedIn. Send me a message and be sure you tell me, hey, this is Mina. We met at Venture Atlanta. Want to get on your calendar," right? That it's very, you want it to feel natural and organic. You don't want it to be like, "Okay, we just met, we talked for 2 seconds. Let's connect." I want you to feel a little bit more organic. You can always reach out to someone on LinkedIn. I think that's the easiest
But
way,
but
but
can I
you're
say
not going to close it. There's no close on it.
right? But can I say like the hell? Hey, can I get in your calendar? Like I get DMs all the time, and I think I just need folks just in general to do better with how they're approaching people on LinkedIn. First of all, like you said, make sure you send a note with the connection request,
Right.
and just be more human. It just I think that's kind of the bottom line of what you're saying here,
Yeah.
Anastasia. Because I see a lot of stuff that people are sending me. It just doesn't even make sense. Like, hey, I want to learn more about you. I'm like, delete. Like, just if you Google me, it's just like a ass of stuff that comes up, right? You can look at my profile and see, like,
Hmm.
no, I'm not scheduling time to talk to you so you can learn about me. I just need people just be a little bit more intentional and more thoughtful when you make an
Okay.
ask to get on somebody's calendar. You know what I mean? Or do you disagree
So
with that or no?
So I'm going to say we're talking about two different things, right?
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it's very different. So what Jesse is talking about is, hey, she and I are having a conversation, whether it's on
Mm-hmm.
Zoom. I'm
Mm-hmm.
assuming it's in person, right? So Jesse and I are having a conversation.
Okay.
We vibe. Like I went to, and it's funny because someone just texted me in the course of this call that we're having about something like that. We were at an event for female founders in Atlanta a couple weeks back. She and I think we were in the bathroom talking. She was talking about egg freezing, and she happens to work at a VC fund. It was like a whole group of us in the bathroom talking about fertility and all the things they don't tell you and all this interesting stuff. And from that conversation, it was like, "Oh, you just moved to Atlanta. You and I are vibing. Let's go and have a drink." That's literally how that went, right? It felt very natural and
That's so
organic.
good.
So, right. So think about this. So Jesse and I are jamming. We're at an event. We're talking. I we're clicking, right? Because that's the
Mm-hmm.
other thing you want to look for. You're clicking, not just like because if you and I talk and you can tell we're not vibing, you're probably going to send me an email and I'm not going to remember meeting you. Be like, "Who was this?" But if we're vibing and I say, "Hey, be sure to connect with me on LinkedIn and send me a message," that's very different than you just spamming me on
Right.
LinkedIn.
So my assumption was I may have met you for a second. We didn't vibe, but I'm trying to follow up to
No,
have
that's
another
crazy.
conversation with
That's
you,
weird.
right?
So like if you meet me for a second and we don't vibe, for whatever reason, right? You probably should be like, maybe this is not the person for me. Because again, I need founders to understand there's so much more to an investor than just a check, particularly at Techstars, because we are going to be with you for 13 weeks where you are coming in and day out. And I am working with you. I am drilling you to make sure that you are the best founder you can be, that you are running the best business that you can run. And that requires there being a level of cultural connection and what do you call culture fit.
Mhm.
So part of the thing that you want to think about is how does this person, the way in which they respond to things, how does that connect with the way I need them to respond? Like founders love me because I'm very direct and I'm down to earth, right? Some people, and I'm not saying people don't like it. I don't
Well,
know anybody who likes
some
people
people,
who
let me be
lie,
honest, not everybody
but like,
appreciates that, but
but not everybody appreciates directness. And so, you
so
know, they might start talking to me and I'm like, I'm not their cup of tea. And that's fine,
it's
because
okay.
again, it's a I need founders to start looking at this as it is mutually beneficial. If you start to look at investment as a mutually beneficial relationship and less as the investor is here and I am here and please give me money because I'm so poor, that changes the whole game.
Now, founders, you are the prize, right?
Yeah, I don't make money if you don't make money.
Founders, you are the prize.
Like, no,
1000%.
literally, like, I don't think founders understand that. Investors do not make money if you do not make money. If an investor's entire portfolio goes to zero, they make no money. And they got people beating on their head like, what you did with my money.
And they probably don't get to raise another fund.
They're never investing again. Their goal is to find the best possible opportunities so that they can invest in. Going back to Mina's conversation earlier, this is not charity. I'm not your homegirl giving you a check because I love you. I'm giving you money because at the end of the day, I need a return.
Yeah. If I can go back, I loved when you were telling that story about the conversation in the bathroom around fertility. I've done a million of these types of conversations, and I just love that. That's what a diverse thing to talk about on a call like this. But it's half the population is female, right? And that, you know, that resonated with me because my twins, we conceived the twins through IVF. So like if I heard you say that, and I'd be like, oh my God, my kids were, oh my God, boom, like we instantly connect.
Yeah.
Boom. And that's my question is like, I'm hearing two different conversations here. We have the one where you just like drop by in the bathroom and vibe. And then the other one where you beeline to somebody that you intended to meet. Like, how do you build up that same kind of organic affinity or test them out to see if you can do that? Because I know for myself, I would rather cockroach bootstrap struggle for the next 2 or 3 years than be stuck with an investor that I don't want to see.
Okay. So let's talk about, so it's two. So first of all, you have to do both. You have to do both. You have to have the intentionality. I think that conversation in the bathroom, women's bathrooms are magical places. If you're in the restroom as a woman at an event, it is a magical place where someone will offer you the lotion from their purse, a tampon, hold your hair back, and give you life advice, right? You and I both know from being in those experiences, it's a very magical place. I don't even know how we got into that conversation, to be very honest with you. I think one of the founders in the room, so there were a couple founders, a couple funders. One of the women in the room was talking about how she had a business that focuses on fertility and education around that. And because she kicked off that conversation, because that's her business, I, as someone who went through egg freezing about 2 years ago, I was like, girl, let me tell you, they don't tell you these things. And another girl is like, hey. And so it just became an organic thing. I am a person, again, I'm a yapper. So I have the ability where I will just jump into anybody's conversation, particularly if we're in a bathroom, it's close quarters. If that is not you, that's a very different kind of conversation. So what I'm telling you is that you have to do both. You have to be able to go in with an expectation of, I want to meet these people and be free flowing. And then I'm also a person who I believe your vibe attract. And I use that word very like loosely, but your energy and the kind of person that you are, you will attract the people that resonate with you. It's how you dress. It's how you present yourself. It is how you speak to people. It's all the things that you are signaling that you will signal to the right person before you even open your mouth.
So I have a confession. So at the top, I admitted that I need to be more intentional when I go to some of these things. But my default, my go-to is like, I just want to, if I sit next to somebody, I'm standing in line, I just want to talk to somebody and get to know them a little bit outside of whatever they do, right? Because this, when you know, somebody's, what do you do? I'm just like, in my back of my mind, I'm not saying this is right, is why do you care? Just like, that's a terrible thing to say out loud, but I just want to get to know you as a person. Like I genuinely do. And when I approach things that way, man, I have met some really incredible people and connected in some really dope ways just by, hey, like, what are you eating? Like, where are you from? Like, what? You know, just connecting on a human level. So that's kind of my go-to. But I think the takeaway from this for me is to be more intentional when I go back to Venture Atlanta next year.
Well, not just Venture Atlanta,
anywhere like that.
Because like I said, I've gone to events. Most of the founders that I have met that have come through Techstars, founders that we have recruited, when I'm out, I meet them when I'm out and about, and it's about them as a person, right? One founder, she and I were talking about money and about how it was at an event for women during Women's History Month about money and how you manage money and your feelings around money. And someone had mentioned her name to me, like randomly, like a few days before. And I was like, oh, I heard your name before, right? And so then she starts telling me about her partner and all these things. And I was like, oh, you and I have some things in common with our partners, right? And so then we started vibing, and it was like, girl, put your application in.
That's
Because I
so
love what you're
human.
doing.
That's so
And
human.
that's what it is. That's what it is.
That's
Founders who
so
just went through
human. Just
the
connecting on a
founders who went
human
through my
level.
WaterTech program. We were doing Founder Catalyst, right? The
Mhm.
team that and I tell everybody, I am like super bullish on this team. They come through the program, I meet them, and I'm very much like, bro, we're not doing this. That's not what we're gonna do. And I'm very just direct with them. And they vibed with it. And I could see how they were moving. And our energy matched energy. And they respected the things that I was saying. I didn't have to fight them on the things that I was saying. I was like, y'all are, what an application at,
Right. Right.
And so again, it's person. I'm a person. I'm an
Yeah.
early stage investor. Later stage is a little different. You know that.
Yeah. It's all about the numbers. So
Right.
we're almost at time.
Yeah.
Is your email a good way for people to get in touch with you if they have a follow-up question?
Yes.
No?
Email. So Anastasia.Simon@techstars.com.
Look at me.
The other thing.
Look at me. Come on.
Yeah. I mean, all of our low key, all of our emails are the same format. If you know somebody at Techstars, you got one email, you could get everybody else email. Most companies have.
Look at that.
I don't think they all
Dropping
are, but I think
game.
it's pretty much the same. We have
Similar,
pretty much,
yeah.
The other thing I would say, that's what I'm saying, like, you know me, but the other thing I would say is I'm going to be dropping office hours soon on LinkedIn. So keep an eye out for that. I'll probably post them tomorrow. I've been meaning to do it this week. I've just been swamped because I haven't been feeling well, been under the weather.
Right.
But yeah,
And
so I'll drop that.
And that's the link to your program because you're the managing director of that program.
Yes.
So Anastasia is a whole boss. Just recognize that.
I'm trying.
No, you ain't trying.
That's what I'm saying. When I say I got spoiled, that's what I'm saying. Like that's the standard now. Everybody's got to hit that standard.
Yeah.
I got some tips for you, girl.
So this is great. I do have to hop. I got a call here
Same.
at the top of the hour. So I'm going to end the stream, roll the plate, the outro. And thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And hopefully this was useful. We gave you a couple frameworks. If you have some more questions, you could just, DM me on LinkedIn or something. DM Anastasia. Hit up Mina too. We appreciate you. Catch you next time later. Y'all stand by for 2 seconds, okay?
Okay.